In the depths, where yin winds howled like grieving spirits, and darkness had long devoured the sun, the cave seemed less a place of earth and stone, and more a mouth waiting to swallow fate itself. Few who entered the yin-yang cave ever returned unchanged. And on this day, beneath its endless shadows, destiny quietly began to tighten its threads around Han Li. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Bai Yaoyi's gaze swept across the sword. With a casual turn of her wrist, she flicked it through the air. Several foot-long arcs of swordlight burst forth, slashing against the wall of ice and carving deep, jagged scars into its frozen surface. Han Li's eyes flickered at the sight. She rotated the blade in her hand, examining it from hilt to tip. After a long moment, a faint crease of doubt touched her brow. After so many years, its spiritual nature has not faded in the slightest. Its master must have poured immense effort into forging it. Judging from its power, it should have belonged to a late core formation cultivator. And yet, that is precisely what makes this strange. Someone of that realm should not have been able to reach this place. May I examine it? Han Li asked calmly. There is no need for courtesy between us. Please. Bai Yaoyi smiled sweetly, and with a gentle flick of her finger, sent the flying sword gliding toward him. Han Li extended his hand. The sword obediently settled into his palm. After studying it for some time, his brows gradually drew together. Has Brother Han discovered something? Bai Yaoyi asked with curiosity. The sword body is refined entirely from blue essence crystal, he replied slowly. That was not a wise choice. Had it been fused with supplementary materials, its power could have been far greater. However, the refinement methods required for such blending were not widely known tens of thousands of years ago. The talisman engravings adorning it are also of an archaic style. Though its master was not an ancient cultivator, they certainly hailed from an era long since buried by time. Bai Yaoyi's eyes widened slightly. Brother Han's depth of knowledge in artifact refinement truly astonishes. Han Li shook his head faintly. It is nothing. I merely happened to browse a few sword refinement archives in the past. He then turned his gaze toward the cavern ahead, his expression returning to its usual composure. Shall we proceed inside and see whether fate has left anything for us to gain? Yes, let us. After a brief pause, Bai Yaoyi nodded. With a soft shimmer, a crystalline white umbrella blossomed open above her hand. She stepped forward into the cavern, leading the way. Han Li smiled faintly. With a subtle gesture, the several flying swords hovering above him transformed into a radiant barrier of golden light before he followed after her. The cavern swallowed them in pitch darkness. Only the restless wail of wind echoed through the hollow depths, accompanied by a faint, eerie whistling that drifted from far within. As though sensing their intrusion, the whistling sharpened, rising into a shrill, piercing cry. This cavern is not vast. It should not be difficult to handle, Han Li murmured. He lifted his hand and summoned a luminous moonlight stone. After striking it with a spell seal, the stone flared brilliantly, casting silver radiance across their surroundings. Yet beyond a certain distance, the churning yin winds distorted the light, leaving the deeper reaches shrouded in murky gloom. 200 meters inward, another entrance came into view, one that faintly exuded an ominous green glow. Han Li and Bai Yaoyi exchanged a wordless glance. Every cavern they had encountered thus far had been nothing more than abandoned ore mines, empty, lifeless. This deviation stirred their vigilance. Even so, neither possessed the temperament to retreat. With the white umbrella floating before her, Bai Yaoyi approached the entrance. But the moment her eyes swept within, the color drained from her face. Han Li stepped to her side and looked in. The chamber beyond spanned 100 meters across its ceiling, crowded with jagged stalactites. A sickly green luminescence seeped from the stone walls and ceiling alike. At the very center stood a crude 10-meter tall stone pillar. Chained tightly against it was a dried corpse. Its head hung limply forward, long grey hair veiling its face. Its abdomen had been torn open, The flesh gored its organs long spilled and withered. Even Han Li, who had witnessed countless horrors, felt his breath still for an instant. As he parted his lips to speak, the blue sword in his hand suddenly trembled violently, releasing long, anguished cries that echoed through the cavern. Understanding dawned in his eyes. With a flick of his wrist, he cast the sword into the air. It shot forward in a streak of blue light, shrinking back to its original half-foot length as it circled the corpse, emitting another mournful wail. This desiccated body was the sword's master. Bai Yaoyi sighed softly, her expression troubled. It seems his golden core was extracted and his life extinguished. Han Li's voice turned cold. He did not die a natural death. This man was offered as a living sacrifice for a wicked art. A living sacrifice. Startled, Bai Yaoyi's gaze finally settled upon the vast spell formation beneath the dust. It spanned nearly 40 meters wide, its lines faintly visible beneath accumulated grime. Han Li nodded. I cannot yet determine which sacrificial formation this is. I will need a closer examination. That will not be necessary. Bai Yaoyi smiled faintly. She opened her mouth and expelled a miniature crystalline fan. In a flash of icy radiance, it expanded to a foot in length and swept through the air. A fierce yellow wind surged forth, stirring the dust into a churning storm that obscured the entire cavern. Yet wrapped in their protective radiance, Han Li and Bai Yaoyi remained untouched. The swirling debris parted around them as they calmly inspected the revealed formation. At that very moment, more than 40 meters behind them, a faint black glow seeped from the ground. A dark silhouette slowly rose from the shadows, crouched and utterly still. When it perceived that the two cultivators had not reacted, a crimson gleam ignited within its eyes. In a blur of motion, it lunged forward. Tilting its head, it let out a piercing screech. A streak of black light shot toward Bai Yaoyi, even as its body hurtled toward Han Li, the creature intending to strike. Both at once, Han Li's hand flipped over. An enormous azure hand of light materialized in mid-air and descended with unerring precision, seizing the black silhouette and suspending it in place. As for the black streak aimed at Bai Yaoyi, she merely turned gracefully, sweeping her umbrella behind her. A flash of white brilliance erupted upon contact. The black streak was deflected effortlessly, slamming into the stone wall and leaving behind a hole an inch deep. Bai Yaoyi smiled faintly as she regarded the captured creature. It possessed the scaled body of a 15-meter-long serpent, the grotesque face of an ape, and two twisted arms, each gripping a foot-long bone spike. Though immobilized within the azure hand, it writhed violently, crimson eyes burning with malice. A calamity ape. They truly exist in this world. Bai Yaoyi murmured in alarm. Hanlan regarded the creature with detached calm. This ghost forms from accumulated human resentment within regions saturated by heavy yin energy. It is vicious by nature, delights in slaughter, and feeds upon the brains of the living. It can also mimic ghostly sounds. The whistle we heard earlier, it was its doing. He clicked his tongue softly. I have read many records, but this is my first time encountering one personally. Still, it is not particularly powerful. To dare attack us is simply courting death. Bai Yaoyi snorted coldly. Such a monstrosity has no reason to live. With a casual gesture, she released a streak of blue light that coiled around the creature, sealing it within a thick shell of ice. Han Li silently tightened his grasp. The azure hand clenched. The frozen monster shattered into countless glittering fragments. By then, the dust had settled, and the full expanse of the spell formation lay clearly before them. Han Li narrowed his eyes and stepped forward, studying it intently. Bai Yaoyi, however, appeared disinterested, her gaze drifting toward the cavern walls instead. After a long while, Han Li finally spoke. This formation is meant for ghost refinement, and it is ancient, extremely so. Furthermore, Bai Yaoyi turned back. Furthermore, the year engraved within its core predates the corpse by far. This formation was laid here since antiquity. Her eyes widened slightly. You determined this so quickly. Han Li chuckled softly. Experience. She studied him for a moment, then let out a light laugh and chose not to press further. The secrets of this place have nothing to do with us. Since there is nothing else of value, we should depart. She retrieved the blue flying sword and placed it into her storage pouch. Hanli nodded. The two turned toward the entrance. But just as they were about to leave, a strange unease stirred within Hanli's heart, subtle yet insistent. He halted. Slowly he turned back to look at the chained corpse upon the stone pillar. "What is it?" Bai Yaoyi asked, faint confusion in her voice. Hanli did not answer. His eyes flickered with cold light. He raised a finger and pointed toward the corpse. A muffled peal of thunder rolled through the cavern. Golden light burst from his fingertip, and a slender arc of lightning shot forth, striking the dried corpse upon the pillar. As Bai Yaoyi watched in surprise, a bolt of golden lightning suddenly descended, striking the grey corpse. In a single blazing flare, the body disintegrated into a drifting heap of white ash. Hanli stood in silence for a moment, his brows slightly furrowed. Then he exhaled calmly. "Let us go. It seems I was overly cautious." With that, he strode forward in long, steady steps. Bai Yaoyi followed behind him, an unconcerned smile touching her lips. Soon the two vanished down another winding passage. Only when they were long gone did something change within the cavern. A surge of purple radiance rose, overwhelming the surrounding black yin winds. From beneath the stone pillar, an inky silhouette slowly emerged. It was a shape forged entirely of shadow, featureless, indistinct, as though light itself refused to cling to it. Only a pair of glowing green eyes burned within its darkness. The creature cast a glance toward the scattered remains of the calamity ape at the cavern's entrance. Then it turned its gaze to the drifting ashes of the corpse. Without warning, it sprang forward. What followed was astonishing. The silhouette blurred, and every speck of white ash lifted from the ground as though summoned by an unseen force. In an instant, the ashes were drawn into its shadowy body. A low, eerie cry escaped it as thick black qi coiled outward, wrapping around its form like living smoke. The qi churned violently, then dispersed. In its place stood an exact replica of the destroyed corpse. Yet this body did not hang limp. It moved. The corpse stepped toward the entrance and exhaled a blast of yin wind. The black gale swept over the shattered remains of the calamity ape. Within that wind, the ice thawed at a visible pace. Flesh, bone, and scale fused together as though rewound by time itself. In mere breaths, the calamity ape stood whole once more. The beast snarled instinctively, then immediately lowered itself at the corpse's feet, docile as a loyal hound. The corpse extended blackened claws and slowly stroked the creature's head. Then it lifted its hollow gaze toward the passage through which Hanli and Bai Yaoyi had departed, as though contemplating something far deeper than simple pursuit. Thunder roared across the summit of a colossal mountain in Nanjiang. Explosions shook the sky above a sprawling manor perched upon its peak. Nearly 100 black-robed cultivators encircled the estate, unleashing waves of magic treasures and arcane techniques against a trembling yellow barrier of light. The barrier covered most of the manor, sheltering a mere dozen yellow-robed cultivators within. Each frantically waved multicolored spell flags, pouring every shred of spiritual power into reinforcing their final defense. Yet they were too few. Under the relentless assault, the barrier swayed violently before their terror-stricken eyes. 1,000 meters above, suspended in the sky, stood a middle-aged cultivator clad in yellow robes. His bearing was imposing, yet his complexion was deathly pale. 5 white smoke-like figures circled him in silence. "Sect, brother," he called out, forcing calm into his voice despite the dread tightening his chest. "Will you not spare the He clan? I have met the Ghost Sect master before. If you agree to stay your hand, we are willing to withdraw from the cultivation world forever and never appear again. This is Nanjiang. If you act rashly, you will invite unnecessary trouble." From all directions at once, a mysterious voice echoed, intermittently cold and disdainful. "Your He clan pledged submission to our yin sifting sect. When the time came, you betrayed us. Do you take us for fools?" A pause. Then the voice sharpened. Do not imagine that relocating to Nanjiang would hide you from us. For the sake of our sect's reputation, your clan must vanish. Your severed head shall serve as a warning to our other subordinates." The air grew heavier. "Will you end your own life, or shall I personally intervene? If I unleash my unbroken Cinque devils, not even your bones will remain." The yellow-robed cultivator's heart sank. At that very moment, a world-shaking explosion erupted below. He glanced downward in alarm, just in time to see the protective barrier shatter into fading motes of light. The last trace of color drained from his face. Below the yin-sifting sect, cultivators erupted in triumphant cheers. Waves of oppressive radiance flooded the manor, utterly suppressing those within. "You dare!" Without hesitation, the yellow-robed cultivator slapped his storage pouch. A massive 10-meter-long yellow python burst forth, diving toward the battlefield below. "There is no need for you to interfere in the affairs of juniors," the mysterious voice replied coolly. "Why not demonstrate the power of your heaven-mixed brick instead?" One of the white silhouettes stirred. In the blink of an eye, it pursued the python with near instantaneous speed. The yellow python's eyes flashed ominously. It opened its maw wide, attempting to swallow the approaching figure whole. The white silhouette trembled silently and transformed into a 3-meter-tall skull of pure white bone. Startled, the python tried to halt its charge, but it was too late. The skull erupted into shrill, layered laughter. A thin white thread shot from its mouth, binding the python's head in an instant. The python thrashed wildly, tail whipping like a mace against the skull. Yet it left not the slightest mark. Grey light surged along the thread. Then the inconceivable occurred. The grey radiance spread across the python's body. Its flesh dimmed, shriveled, and withered away in moments. Within the span of a breath, nothing remained but a gleaming skeleton suspended in the air. The skull did not relent. It jerked the thread, pulling the bones into its jaws. Crunch. The sound echoed grotesquely as it devoured the remains. Witnessing the destruction of the spirit beast he had nurtured for decades, the yellow-robed cultivator's expression twisted with grief and resentment. He slapped the back of his head. A sparkling yellow brick several inches long flew from his mouth. With solemn incantation gestures, he pointed toward it. The brick circled once in the air, then expanded dramatically. Within a single breath, it grew to 30 meters across, looming above him like a falling mountain. Blazing light radiated from its surface as talismanic characters roamed across it, releasing an astonishing pressure that shook the heavens. "This is the heaven-mixed brick." The concealed cultivator sighed faintly. "I am somewhat disappointed. It fails to live up to its reputation." A faint chuckle. "It seems I will simply let my Cinque devils handle you." The 5 white figures stirred simultaneously and drifted forward. Ignoring the insult, the yellow-robed cultivator let out a thunderous roar. The massive brick spun violently, conjuring a raging tornado that engulfed him within its center. But the 5 white silhouettes showed no hesitation. They plunged directly into the storm. "You seek death." Countless streaks of yellow light burst from the tornado, each a foot-long brick, pelting the intruders with rolling thunderclaps. Amidst the chaos, a streak of yellow shot from the tornado, fleeing across the sky at astonishing speed. A bone-chilling snort resounded. 4 white silhouettes gave chase and vanished in a blur. Moments later, space fluctuated ahead of the fleeing cultivator. The 4 figures reappeared in a flash of silver light. They charged. Panic seized him. He halted abruptly and hastily summoned another 10-meter brick to smash toward them. But the silhouettes blurred and phased straight through the brick as though it were insubstantial air. In the blink of an eye, they stood before him. Desperation flared in his eyes. He waved his sleeve, releasing a radiant blue pendant. The trinket shimmered, releasing a dense blue mist that halted the white silhouettes mid-charge. Yet the cultivator felt no relief. Strange laughter erupted from the figures as blue mist began seeping from their own forms. His heart sank. He cloaked himself in protective light and prepared to flee. But before he could move, white chi flickered before him. The silhouettes passed through his protective radiance without resistance. They vanished into his body. He had no time to react. A searing heat exploded within him. His nascent soul trembled violently. His blood felt as though it boiled within his veins. It was the final sensation he would ever know. From afar, one would have seen his flesh shrivel into a desiccated husk within moments. His nascent soul had already been cleanly devoured. The 5 white figures emerged once more, now transformed into skulls. They ferociously gnawed upon what remained. Below, the manor had fallen utterly silent. A black-robed elder ascended respectfully and bowed before the 5 figures, reporting to the great elder. The He clan's 72 cultivators are all dead. 300 mortals remain. We await your command. Kill them all. The voice was curt and absolute. It shall be done. The elder withdrew at once. Wait, the mysterious voice continued darkly. Elder Ji previously mentioned that the cultivator who slew our 4th elder and seized the ghost-sifting banner may be hiding in Nanjiang, a pause heavy with killing intent. Now that this matter is concluded, all disciples are to investigate his whereabouts. I will remain here for 1 year. Should any trace of him surface, I will personally set out. A faint chill entered the voice. How could I allow our sect's signature treasure to remain in the hands of an outsider? The old man stiffened. Yes, this junior will carry out your orders. He descended in a streak of black light. Left alone in the sky, the mysterious voice muttered softly. He was able to kill my 4th junior martial brother who wielded the ghost-sifting flag, and escape the pursuit of the endless sky temple. He will prove far more interesting than exterminating the insignificant He clan. A trace of anticipation lingered in the air. Nearly a month later, at the very bottom of the yin-yang cave, Han Li stood within a vast wind cavern, his hands forming intricate incantation seals. A dozen golden flying swords revolved around him like blazing suns weaving a shimmering barrier. Each time their light flashed, countless black moths that swarmed toward him were shredded apart, dissolving into thin strands of drifting black chi. The moths were several inches long, their bodies pitch black as ink. With every beat of their wings, razor-thin blades of wind were unleashed, hissing through the air toward him. Yet each gale struck harmlessly against the golden radiance of his sword array. Still, for every moth that fell, 2 more took its place. Han Li's expression darkened with faint irritation. With a flick of his wrist, he cast a spirit beast pouch from his waist. In the next instant, a swarm of sparkling gold-devouring beetles surged forth, filling the cavern with a faint metallic hum. The moment the black moths encountered the beetles, their relentless advance faltered. More and more fell from the air, yet, whenever one was slain, it simply dissolved into black chi as though it had never truly existed. Seeing this, Han Li withdrew most of his flying swords and strode deeper into the cavern. The yin winds here howled with greater ferocity, slashing through the hollow space in violent gusts. Even his formidable spiritual sense was suppressed to less than 10 meters. At the very least, the moths no longer harassed him. When he reached what he estimated to be the cavern's center, blue light shimmered within his eyes. The spirit light sharpened his vision, allowing him to perceive his surroundings clearly despite the murk. Then, his breath caught. 60 meters ahead, he raised his hand and released a moonlight stone. Suspended by a mist of azure light, it illuminated a circle of pale brilliance 10 meters wide. Under its cold glow, half embedded in the cavern wall, lay a skull-sized black crystal. The gem pulsed with a haunting radiance. With each flicker, more black moths poured forth from its surface, swarming toward Han Li and the luminous moonlight stone in a frenzied tide. Yet midway through their charge, they were intercepted and devoured by the gold-devouring beetles. And still they came. This is the 3rd one, Han Li muttered thoughtfully. And this one can harness the surrounding yin qi to manifest dark yin moths. How peculiar. As he watched, the crystal flared once more with black light. A sharp pop echoed. From its surface emerged a moth nearly a meter wide, its wings vast and shadowy. Crimson eyes locked onto Han Li with savage intent. Han Li merely raised an eyebrow, a casual flick of his finger. A bolt of golden lightning shot forth. The massive moth was dispersed, instantly annihilated, before it could display whatever strange abilities it possessed. The divine devil bane lightning was its natural bane. Without hesitation, Han Li extended his hand. A massive azure hand of light materialized, seizing the crystal with a resounding crack as it was torn free from the wall. The moment the crystal was extracted, the surrounding yin winds diminished by more than half. Every remaining moth burst into black chi and scattered into nothingness. Han Li showed no surprise. Instead, his thoughts drifted to the two smaller crystals he had discovered in other wind caverns days prior. These strange objects had left him quietly astonished, though he had chosen to postpone deeper investigation. After returning once to Old Man Fu to renew the protective light of the dark violet pearl, he had parted ways with Bai Yaoyi. Without her presence, Han Li no longer restrained himself. Over the past days, he had advanced deeper at a pace several times faster than the others. High-grade ghosts appeared with increasing frequency, but his flying swords and golden lightning dispatched them with ease. Not once had he needed to summon the weeping soul beast. Now he understood why few high-level cultivators dared explore the yin-yang cave. Beyond the dangers, there was little to gain, only abandoned magical tools and inferior ore veins. Several days ago, however, while pursuing a ghost, he had stumbled into a small wind cavern by chance. At first he had little interest in it. The umbra yin horse they sought could not possibly survive amidst such violent yin winds. Moreover, even under the dark violet pearl's protection, advancing within would consume enormous amounts of magic power. Yet upon discovering the first black crystal, his curiosity had been piqued. With divine devilbane lightning as his shield and myriad spirit milk to replenish his magic, he feared little. He had never encountered records of these black crystals. At a glance they resembled devil essence diamonds, but the resemblance was superficial. They lacked both the hardness and the devilish essence. Instead, they appeared to be rare wind attribute gems, formed over countless years within these caverns, yet strangely saturated with dense yin qi. After searching dozens of wind caverns, he had found only 3. The first 2 were fist-sized. The third, the one now in his possession, was skull-sized and capable of manifesting ghosts. After studying it carefully and confirming it no longer reacted, Han Li affixed several restriction talismans to its surface. He sealed it within a jade box and stored it in his pouch, following a final sweep of the cavern to ensure nothing had been overlooked. He withdrew to the passageway from which he had come. A kilometer onward, he entered yet another narrow tunnel. The path constricted gradually until finally, a wall of solid ice blocked his way. Han Li sighed faintly, but still approached. With a flick of his hand, azure light shot forward, sinking deep into the frozen wall. He pressed his palm against it, sweeping it thoroughly with spiritual sense. No mechanisms, no hidden restrictions. Without hesitation, he turned back. His return was far swifter than his advance. Though he did not know the exact layout of the yin-yang cave, judging from the increasing density and variety of ghosts encountered, they were likely nearing its core. And yet, there had been no sign of the umbra yin horse. His patience was wearing thin. He had rushed to refine the triflame fan specifically for this journey. He had no intention of returning empty-handed. For a nascent soul cultivator, breaking through to the late stage was a trial bordering on the impossible. In the heavenly south, those who reached mid-nascent soul were already considered heaven-blessed geniuses. Of them, only 3 had managed to advance further. Even in Great Jin, late-stage nascent soul cultivators were rare figures seldom glimpsed. Han Li had once considered using the copulation essence arts with Mu Peeling to attempt the breakthrough, but the odds were uncertain. Now, however, the nascent cultivating pill had appeared before him like a sliver of destiny. He would not let such an opportunity slip away. If they truly failed to capture the umbra yin horse, he would attempt to acquire the pill's formula from Old Man Fu. Though the chances were slim, if he obtained the recipe, he could seek the beast elsewhere. After all, there were countless regions in the world where yin qi naturally converged. As these thoughts churned within him, Han Li sped through the tunnel. Suddenly, his expression shifted. A flicker of green light approached rapidly from ahead. Without pause, he waved his sleeve. A cloud of azure mist surged outward, capturing the incoming light and drawing it before him. It was a gleaming green sword to which a red jade slip was attached. Han Li pursed his lips. He removed the jade slip, then released the sword. It let out a clear chime before vanishing into the yin winds. He immersed his spiritual sense into the jade slip. Moments later, his eyes brightened. They found traces of the umbra yin horse. A faint smile surfaced. With a turn of his hand, he summoned a white formation plate. A tap. Azure light flashed across its surface, smooth and reflective as a mirror. 4 differently colored lights shimmered at various positions. He noted their alignment, stored the plate away, and surged forward at increased speed. Half a day later, Han Li arrived at a 4-way intersection. Cultivator Yuan and Old Man Fu sat in meditation there. The dark violet pearl floated motionlessly above the old man's head, radiating its protective glow. "You found it?" Han Li asked. "That's correct." Cultivator Yuan chuckled, unable to conceal his excitement. "The umbra yin horse is within that passage. Extremely cunning creature. I could not capture it alone, so I sealed the exit and waited." "Good." Han Li nodded faintly. "Once we know its location, the rest is only a matter of time." Old Man Fu smiled broadly. "Junior Martial Sister Chang and fellow Taoist Bai are still some distance away. We should wait. With all of us present, capturing it will be far easier." Han Li felt a measure of relief and sat down to meditate. Several hours later, the black-robed woman and Bai Yaoi arrived. Upon hearing the news, they too were delighted. After placing several simple spell formations at the passage entrance, the 5 promptly entered. Not long after, dark light flickered from beneath the ground. 3 pitch-black dried corpses slowly emerged. Their chests were hollow, their flesh entirely gone. Only bone and shriveled remnants remained. Yet within their empty sockets burned a chilling green light. Without emotion, they stared silently in the direction Han Li's party had departed. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.